All right, let's start talking about this. Legion of Superheroes, the new Legion of Superheroes #1.
So today we're looking at Legion of Superheroes Volume 4, #1. It's got a cover date of November of 1989. We've got Keith Giffen on plot and pencils, Al Gordon co-plots and inks, Tom and Mary Bierbaum on dialogue, Tom McCraw is the colorist, and Mark Waid is the editor. I just realized I don't have a letterer missed. Do I have a letterer message? I don't think the letterer is credited on the back of the comic.
Oh, really? It's Todd Klein.
It's weird. He would have had to have lettered
it's either.
Is he listed?
Yeah, it's Todd Klein. I don't
He
know
is
if
listed?
he's listed or not. Let me look.
Sorry, I already fucked up. But
You fucked this up, dude.
what's weird is all of these people have written the Legion.
Yeah, here he is, Todd Klein.
Oh, I just skipped over him because he wasn't important.
Did you say Tom McGraw
I thought so.
and Mark Waid?
Mark Waid is the editor.
No, let's talk about the cover for a second.
Oh, okay.
There was just that detail in that thing you sent me about the gold ink.
Mm-hmm.
I put a link to that oral history you sent me in our YouTube description, but it's behind a paywall.
Yeah.
You must have bought it.
I
You
did.
Copy and pasted it and sent me the whole thing.
I told you that. I guess it was a couple years ago.
It's very kind of you to do that, but
Yeah.
our audience will have to pay if they want to read that.
Mm.
But in that thing, Mark Waid's talking about how they had to ship the comic a week late because they ordered gold, a 5th ink, gold ink for the ring, and probably for the logo.
Right.
And he said the print shop hadn't had experience doing that, and so they, instead of printing the gold ink first and the black line on top of it to make it look like this is a gold ring, they printed the gold ink last, so it went down as the final layer, and this ring was just a gold blob. And
something really similar happened to Chris Pitzer like 10, 15 years ago when he put out like Project Superior, the anthology. It had
that is silver.
But they messed it up and put it on like, I guess, last, and it covered up all the line work.
Yeah.
And some of the pages still look kind of okay, but it messed up all those books.
Did you realize that you said it was about 10 or 15 years ago?
It was probably like 20 years ago.
It was more like 20 or 24 years ago.
Oh, shit.
No, it was right about the time I was moving away from Chicago. So that was 2003 or 4.
I think
so
it was
20 years ago.
I think it's the year I met you, actually.
Yeah.
Just briefly,
I remember
in St. Louis.
When I lived there, Jeremy Smith, he got a comic in that, and he said, "Oh, David, you should get in this."
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he was like trying to petition Chris Pitzer to put a comic of mine in there or use me for it. And I'm sure Pitzer was like, "This guy's not ready. He's no good."
Shit. I don't know. He's retired now.
Yeah. But as for that metallic ink that they were going to use here, I think they were just going to follow the lead of the previous Legion #1 from a few years earlier that had silver.
Yeah.
I don't know if it really shows up. It kind of looks metallic under here when you get the light just right. This has a silver logo. And then I was even looking at this issue 300 from a few years prior still that has gold.
Though, but that gold and that silver, they stand out to me. They look unusual. Like they look like they were made with a paint pen or something. But the volume 4, it just looks like a dull yellow to me. It doesn't even look like a metallic color.
Well, yeah, they redid it without the metallic.
Oh, they redid it without.
Yeah, he said that they came back with just a blob of gold ink.
Oh.
And that's no good. So they had to, I guess, destroy those, print it again, and they shipped a week late, is what he said. Yeah. It just didn't get printed with the metallic ink.
Right.
But I think they would have continued on their streak of having
the streak is broken.
Deluxe metallic ink.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of also confuses me because he says the print shop didn't know how to do it and they'd never done it before. So I guess it wasn't the same outfit that did issue 300 or the same outfit that did this issue number 1 that did this one. Because those guys goofed.
Well, this one's a lot trickier than the last one, though, because that one is just pure. It could be like a stencil. It's all silver, right? Does it have any black on top of it?
No.
No. Whereas the new one it has black on top.
Oh, yeah. It could be that this one they printed the silver last almost, huh? Yeah, that's true, because you can almost see up close in person. I can see that there's a little bit of white, like it's off register, the silver. So, yeah, maybe they did that. Maybe it is the same idea. They just had never done it with black over top. And this does seem like a complicated piece with the painted color. And then and this is not painted color here. This is what do they call it? 4-color process color. However that's done. So it could be a very challenging cover, I guess. Yeah,
it'd be nice to see I don't know, like a reconstruction of what it was meant to look like. If it would make a big difference.
I mean, I can really imagine it if, like, the logo was this gold.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't too shiny, but you can see that it's. I don't know, if you had this in person, you could see that this has gold ink, and it's not just yellow or brown or something. But then to have the logo, or definitely the ring, maybe the logo, something akin to this guy.
Yeah,
it would stand out. I think it would look pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it'd look good on the logo. I don't know about that ring. I mean, all one solid color would they put white on top of it or something for kind of the gleams, or would it all be just like one flat gold with a little?
It would just be shiny. Yeah, it just look like gold instead of yellow.
Right.
I think there was something else I was going to say about the cover. I can't remember though. It was something that came to me when we were just talking just now. Whatever.
It'll come back to you.
Well, but we won't go back. I'm not flipping the pages back. All right, I'm going to turn to page 1.
Okay, let's do this. 5 years later. So for the sake of clarity, I'm going to kind of give a brief summary of what basically has happened between the end of the last series and this.
You have 10 seconds.
All right. Don't start the timer yet. I gotta warm up. So, longtime Legion writer Paul Levitz ended his run on Legion, the last series, which ended like 2 months before this one started, and it ended with a storyline called The Magic Wars. And the main thing to take away from that, for our purposes, is that it was sort of like an intergalactic version of Y2K, or what we worried Y2K would be. Like, all the technology in the universe stopped working. By the end, the Legion prevails against the magic guys, and technology starts running again. And Paul Levitz has a nice, triumphant, somewhat optimistic, open ending to the story. But what we find out as we read this is basically a couple, like almost directly after Paul Levitz's series ended, there is a Great Depression that affects all of the United Planets, called the Great Collapse. And it's sort of like what happened to the world when COVID hit. There were like massive disruptions, and it affected the supply chains, and just everything started to fall apart. So anyway, there's great economic upheaval, and all the planets are no longer getting along. The utopian, optimistic future of the Legion seems to be done. A year later, the Earth actually secedes from the United Planets. That's all we really need to know. I don't know how to cap it.
No, I think that works.
I mean, there's obviously a million things I could explain that I figured out that happened in between, but those are the things I feel like you kind of need to know if you come into this cold and go, why the hell is everything fucked up? There's a huge economic depression. The United Planets is basically gone or collapsed or
right.
dysfunctional. And Earth is no longer part of it. I guess we could say like the Kuns. How do you pronounce it?
I say Coons.
Coons.
I always make sure hit the D because I don't want to.
Oh God, the Coons.
But I don't think it's Kuns. That's not.
The Coons.
That's not worse, but that's also weird. The cunts.
The cunts.
The coons.
I mean, they kind of play a role too. What are they in this? They're kind of. Are they Russia? Are they Japan? Maybe more like
I
Russia.
don't know. Like, I don't know if you would plan to talk about the text pages at the very end very much. One of them was really only one of them had anything too deep in it, and that's the Coon invasion and the economic collapse one. I mean, should we just turn the page and keep talking? The dissolution of the or the secession of Earth from the United Planets, which has collapsed, kind of gets us right here. They've scooted us up to 5 years later.
Right.
And this very dramatic opening page. Like, have you ever seen a splash page like this before? And it's really cool. He's using his toothbrush to do this inking.
Is that Al Gordon?
I think this must be Al Gordon got paid the whole rate for this page.
Yeah.
No Giffen on this one. There was that thing in that article too where Tom Bierbaum was like, on those text pages at the end, they look like this. Mm-hmm. Tom Bierbaum said that he and Mary got paid the whole rate for that because Keith didn't draw and Gordon didn't ink.
Right.
So the Bierbaums got the whole page rate for that. It wasn't split up. And so on this page, I would imagine that maybe a split between the colorist, the letterer, and Al Gordon, the inker. I bet Keith didn't take any money.
It's kind of him.
Yeah. I'm going to have to get a new copy of this. This one's kind of like, I don't know. This is the first one I ever bought. It's kind of flimsy. You know how they get when they're real old and you read them a lot?
I've got the one I first bought that I was looking at just earlier, and its cover recently fell off.
Oh, damn. Well, there's a mint condition one in a 50-cent box near you.
Yeah, I've got like 6 of them, like bagged and backboarded or whatever. Because this is too good a comic to just be sitting here in the quarter bin, getting probably thrown in the dumpster in another couple months.
I thought for sure I had multiple copies of number 1, but I don't. Like my duplicates kind of begin at like issue 6. I have 2 of from 6 to like 15 or something in this box over here.
Maybe it's, a couple of those, like almost all of them were always in the quarter bins or the 50-cent bins, but they might pull a couple of them out because they'd be like worth $1.75 instead of 50 cents. The first issues, and then like the issue where Superboy dies is the only one I can really think of other than that.
Sometimes for a number 1, they can slap an extra 50 cents on that price, on the cover price, and sell it to you.
But nowadays, I even see the number 1s of Volume 3 in bins all the time.
Oh, those are some of the most common.
Because they printed the crap out of them, probably.
Yeah, because there was a big boom of those Baxter comics, like Legion number 1, New Teen Titans number 1, Omega Men number 1. Mm-hmm. There's like Thriller. There's billions of Thrillers out there. It's just weird. All the direct market Baxter books that costed $1.50. I
would have thought the opposite would have been true since they weren't like sending tons of copies to like, all the gas stations and grocery stores. Maybe they'd have a much smaller, more targeted amount.
Yeah, but I think there was just a blitz of them. Like, I think maybe the comic shops kind of bought into it, and they're like, this is going to really build up our business or something. Mm-hmm. And so, because these are these direct market only books, you couldn't get them anywhere else. So maybe maybe a comic shop just was like, yeah, I'm going to buy 1,000 of these because people can't get them anywhere else.
Right.
You know? Okay, so page 2.
So we start with a kind of a TV channel flipping montage, which I feel was used kind of frequently in the 80s. Like Frank Miller kind of opens The Dark Knight with something like this. Even movies like RoboCop kind of relied on channel flipping to sort of as a expositional device to kind of give you a lay of the land. So we start with kind of a commercial that's like a documentary of the rise and fall of the Legion of Superheroes. And it shows like brief moments like the death of Lightning Lad and the Fatal Five, the Great Darkness Saga. But then it sort of ends mentioning that things don't end well for the Legion, but the channel flips before we can learn any more about it. And we see a news story about some anti-government terrorists who are supposedly in league with the Coons. I think we kind of find out that they're more like against the EarthGov, which might be oppressive at this point, but they're being labeled as terrorists. Universo, an old Legion enemy, seems to be the leader, which is kind of surprising. And then finally, we settle on an interview with former Sunboy Dirk Morgana.
Yeah, did they make it clear? They don't say who's watching the TV, but...
Not yet. That's coming.
Oh, okay. It is kind of an interesting juxtaposition, the puff piece. I love the 90s kind of documentary.
Right.
And then like the quote unquote real news. It's not
right.
This is just NBC News. This is not
right.
Democracy Now. This is
right.
mainstream news.
Right.
MSM.
I mean, there's a couple things I'd point out real quick. Like right before the channel flips on us, when they're telling us about the documentary, they say Dirk Morgana is narrating it, which kind of gives you an idea, helps suggest the kind of person he seems to be in the future. This sort of like has been trying to remain a celebrity any way he can.
They do it, yeah, like just that sentence makes it like, oh yeah, now a few years later, he's just a celebrity. He's a talking head on a TV
right.
show, or he's like, I'm trying to think of who narrates shows.
Right.
Instead of being the star of the show,
probably
he just talks.
Doing Space Arby's commercials and...
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's like, you want to do a Legion documentary? Who do you get? Who's the celebrity? Oh, Dirk.
Right. Well, he does have a somewhat official position with the government, as we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd also note, like, we see the science police look a lot scarier than we last remember them.
Oh, yeah. This is a thing that Giffen does a lot, I think, when he wants to just have someone be... I think Giffen knows that a lack of face means scary, I guess. I mean, maybe it's that simple. But, like, yeah, like you have fascist oppressor people. Don't give them a face. That helps, you know?
Right. And then there's a little bit of a joke here with I think there's a joke anyway, because they're hiding out in this kind of, what is it, like a sewage plant or something in the Hamptons.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It kind of feels...
Right, yeah, 1,000 years from now, the Hamptons district is... it's a slum and a haven for terrorists.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, right off the bat. These guys, they're breaking down the class oppression, or they're addressing it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you talk about this last panel? They switched. Whoever's watching has flipped a channel. Now we actually see Dirk.
I think I did mention.
Oh, okay. I guess that doesn't say it's him, but we know it must be. He's got
right.
And actually, talking about the design of the 5 years later Dirk, like they give him this long hair. And I wonder if there's any temptation to make him, or to give him the full-on Michael Bolton, bald on top, party in the back, or whatever. You know,
right?
He's still got, like, this is all hair plugs up here, people.
Right. He's got that and the fancy clothes and the earring, like trying to telegraph douchebag. You know?
Yeah, definitely. It's like, yeah, Giffen is a good cartoonist for that. Like, he knows the kind of details, And I think beer bombs
Mhm.
too are in their writing and their dialogue. They know that just the right details to
Mhm.
put across. They're good at that. Like
Right.
I always struggle if I'm writing a comic and I want to really use the fewest words and the fewest details to get my point across. It's hard.
Mhm.
These guys, they nail it. Like, you see this dude,
Right.
what a bag of shit, you know?
Right. And I guess, you know, a lot of fans, especially Sunboy fans, didn't like this turn of the character. But like Giffen said, it was always in his character. If you look at everything he had done before, he'd always been a little scandalous with the ladies and a little frat boyish. He just took it to it. He said he just kind of took it to its natural conclusion, like what kind of character he would end up as a man, I guess. Like the seeds of it were there.
I wonder how many people who are fans of like this stuff specifically, the Legion stuff specifically, and just in general, these kind of periodical type of narrative things, like they don't
Hmm.
want these people to ever change, and they think
Right.
that like they feel like, oh yeah, the character of Sunboy, he's a rich guy, he's a cad, but
Right.
he's still good at heart, and he'll never be anything other than that. Like that won't advance. He won't become,
Right.
like we always see it, like, oh, like I don't know, our parents or whatever, or
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
as they get older, they get more conservative and they become psychotic in our eyes.
Right.
And but a comic book character, he is that way permanently.
Hmm.
No matter how many years pass, he's always going to be chasing skirts. He's just going to be a hero,
Right.
and he was nice 10 years ago. He's nice now. His opinions are never going to
Right.
evolve.
Yeah, there's sort of this, like when you're a kid and when you attach yourself to a character, you might be like, I like the Hulk because he's stronger than anybody. And I want him to be stronger than anybody. It would be lame if anybody was tougher than he was. But when you get older, especially if you're interested in like writing comics yourself, I guess, but you realize, well, that would make a boring story if he's the strongest guy. The bad guy needs to be tougher than he is. You sort of detach from that, where you want your character to be the characters you like to be the best or to be perfect or infallible. And like, to me, Sunboy was kind of a boring character until this stuff started to happen. It's when he becomes kind of more complicated in the series that I began to like him more. Somebody, for a good story, somebody has to be the jerk.
Yeah. Yeah, and he gets like, he doesn't seem complex now, but yeah, there
Hmm.
as time goes on, like I don't remember
Right.
the issue 28 or something, and over that
Hmm.
span, like he
Right.
gets a little conflicted. There's complications in his life.
Yeah, it's interesting too that we kind of find out, and I don't know if this is spelled out in the book or it might be in that source book that the Tom and Mary Bierbaum wrote, but he was actually one of the holdouts. He was one of the last guys to quit the Legion. Not the last. He quit about a year before he joined EarthGov. But he was adamantly anti EarthGov, and he stuck with the Legion a long time through the 5 years, which is not what you'd expect seeing him like this.
In that issue 28, which is kind of a spotlight, it does kind of make it
Hmm.
clear that he
Yeah.
he was trying to keep it together, and then there's like only maybe one more leader of the Legion after
Uh-huh.
him.
So, as I mentioned, Dirk was reportedly one of the last Legionnaires who quit during the 5 year gap. But after a year on his own, with no future prospects and missing the fame of being a superhero, he kind of ends up selling out and becomes an EarthGov liaison. He wants to be a celebrity still. I mean, if this comic about the future were written today, as opposed to 1989, he'd probably be a reality TV star. Like anything to stay in the limelight. Kind of an unspoken sort of theme that maybe I just read into these comics, but I constantly see is like the parallel between the Legionnaires and like child celebrities, or like manufactured kid groups like Menudo and stuff, where they're put together by a manager, or like in this case RJ Brand, but they're not like young and cute anymore. They can't go by boy anymore. They're all grown up and they're kind of down and out.
Yeah.
But then you always have like the one child star who's doing all the commercials and trying to keep it alive. And I kind of feel like Dirk is a little bit that guy.
Yeah, Dirk, you would think he's the Zach, but he's actually the Screech. like this skeevy son of a bitch. He had a sex tape 3 years ago, right?
For sure. During the 5-year gap.
Yeah. Black Dawn.
I think that's what what it was about. That's what it was. It can now be revealed.
No, that's a good point. I never really thought of it like that, but yeah, like, and also the also painting RJ Brand as the sketchy manager, child exploiter guy.
Right.
Kind of weird.
Right.
Kind of sheds a new light, just casts a new light on RJ Brand. Right.
It was sort of easy for me to fall into seeing things that way because I didn't actually read much of the middle stuff, if any of it. Like, I basically went from reading like my mom's old Silver Age and early 70s Legion comics to reading this.
Oh, yeah.
And this was like right around the time that we were seeing a lot of things like Leave It to Beaver reunion special, and there were some programs that seemed to be capitalizing on that idea of like the kids coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like that to me. And like 30 something was on TV that had this sort of theme of that they're like old and middle aged now and have problems and kids, and it felt like those themes were entering the comic a little bit.
This talk show thing too, it's like it's really on the nose where they're interviewing Dirk and they bring out the archival footage. He's like, "Oh, that old thing! I'm so embarrassed."
Right. And it's sort of sad. He ends up, completely shitting on Polar Boy there.
Yeah, he totally drags Polar Boy,
who doesn't really get the best treatment, I feel, by Giffen either at the end of the last series where he's a little bit of a joke, and then when he shows up later in this one, he's definitely played as a joke. But here, I feel like it's kind of heroic in a sad way. Like, he always wanted to be a Legionnaire. He finally got to be on the team. He finally got the lead, and he's like the last guy who still believes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everyone else has walked but him. He's the lone Legionnaire until he's arrested.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we like his appearances in this issue are kind of like only on this page where Dirk is like, I can't believe what happened to him. He's such a loser.
Right.
And then he has a text page way at the back where he's disbanding the Legion. It seems like they might have had bigger plans for him. Like they could have used him for something else, but we know after reading him that they never did anything with him except to make him a joke and a second banana to Mad Reader Land, which I don't know. I think
and those are funny stories, but it just feels like they could have done that with another character and done something more interesting with him.
Right. Yeah. I wish they would have done something a little bit like just imagining what might have been after reading this one issue. It's like, oh yeah, they could have some good plans for the Breck Bannon character as a counterbalance to the, like the sort of sellout, washout character of Sunboy, and
for sure,
and because their powers are the opposite too. Like the one guy is the sellout rich guy, and the one guy is the washout guy. The sellout guy is fire, and the washout loser guy is ice.
I didn't even think about that, but that's really obvious. Yeah, you're right.
But it's also kind of like in Justice League how Giffen had the fire and ice characters, those girl heroes. Like, I mean, as a counterpoint to one another, like their relationship was totally different. But
yeah, I mean, I'm glad he chose the characters he chose, and obviously it should be about Rock. But in some ways, Polar Boy almost fits the role that Chameleon Boy says Rock feels better because Rock himself is pretty disillusioned
Oh yeah.
and thinks the dream is dead. But Polar Boy's the guy who's like, the dream's never going to die, or I'll never let it die.
Yeah, Polar Boy is the guy who's not gonna sell out. Like he is in this 100%. And you can find a shithead like Sunboy who will follow the money and follow the notoriety. But Polar Boy, he did it for nothing. He was this hero saving the galaxy and nobody knew it, and he was that into it.
For sure. And he was willing to kind of be a joke and a fool for years as a sub, but he cared enough that he kept doing it because he didn't care if he got laughed at, I guess, because that wasn't what he was in it for.
Right. Yeah, and like you say, that almost makes him a better candidate for the role that they give to Cosmic Boy in this.
Right. The only detriment maybe is I don't know that even though I like him as leader, he's not necessarily a good leader in the way that Rock is. He's not had a great track record as leader, I don't think. Right.
No page numbers in this comic book.
I know. I actually wrote numbers in pencil on my old copy to keep track. So we finally get a look at the person flipping through the channels. And it's a hooded figure who's revealed himself to be former Chameleon Boy, Reap Daggle.
Oh, it was Chameleon Boy. Watching TV.
Yeah. So Reap has spent the last 5 years running his father's company. And he's decided that now is the time to tend to RJ's other dream. RJ's father being RJ Brand, the founder of the Legion of Superheroes.
Let's exploit some teenagers.
I know. I don't know about you. When I first read this, I just assumed he had died at some point during the 5 years.
Chameleon Boy or Brand?
Brand. And I don't remember if he left in the last series or not.
I don't remember. There was maybe more than one storyline where he disappears, right?
Right.
Like there was the one where he went back to Durla and then Chameleon Boy went and got him. I don't know if he came back or not, or Chameleon Boy came back and he lost his powers and he was on trial or some shit like that. But yeah, right here, I don't know what happened.
One thing that really stands out to me about Chameleon Boy in this series is I feel like, in this, I bet this is the Bierbaums, but I think he's a much better character in this series. He's more sure of himself. Like in the Silver Age days, he was kind of a prankster kind of guy. And then like in the 70s, he got a little whiny, and then he turned into like a super cop for a while, where he's kind of like Jack Webb in a lot of stories.
I just remember him as like the espionage squad. Like I'm a detective. I'm always analytical, and like that's what you mean by the Jack Webb stuff, huh? Right,
and that was like night and day from the way he was written early on. He was kind of impish, right? And it's fine, but the sense of humor was gone. It didn't really make sense. And then, or around the time he finds out who his father is, he kind of just gets really emo and kind of insufferable, I think, in a lot of stories. But by the time we see him here, he's got that smile on his face. He's even drawing him a little bit older looking. He has like a fuller face and maybe some creases. He just seems more sure of himself.
I don't even remember anything he really did in the series just prior to this, the volume 3. Like he was in it, and I remember there's like Giffen gave him a new uniform that looks really silly, and I think maybe he was in that Universal Project storyline. Maybe I guess in my memory, and whether my memory is really tuned into the reality, Chameleon Boy was sort of a non-entity for all that time of the Paul Levitz Volume 3 series. He must have been in there. He must have done something, but I don't remember any big achievements of his. I don't remember him doing anything. Yeah, so maybe it's just me being forgetful, but I don't remember seeing him too much. But here he's like, yeah, he is. Giffen must like him. He's big in this series.
I think he was one of the guys who got who ended up on that controller planet that was manufacturing the suns.
Oh yeah,
or the Sun Eaters.
that's right. Yeah, he was.
But I don't know that he did anything particularly outstanding there. He's just one of those characters.
Right, yeah, like those four characters are kind of bouncing around. They did some time travel and had a DC Comics Presents crossover.
And then he's in that annual I mentioned earlier about Colossal Boy and Starfinger. He goes to kind of rescue him.
Oh yeah, is that under the auspices of the Espionage Squad, or is it some made up bullshit where it's like, oh, Colossal Boy's best friend was always Chameleon Boy, so he's going to go rescue him?
I don't remember. I forgot about that. We should have done this series 10 years ago when I still had my memory. I feel like I'm starting to lose it.
No, I mean...
We were just talking about some of this stuff.
I'm just guessing at it. I don't really remember.
I forgot. There was like
I'm
that
trying to
weird,
think like
weird
Paul Levitz.
There was that weird retconned friendship. No. That's...
Right.
Wait a minute. That was Karate Kid and Timberwolf.
Yeah, but I think there might have been one for now that we're talking about it. Was there a Chameleon Boy, Colossal Boy?
Because he was the first Legionnaire to be friendly to him or something. Everyone else was afraid of him.
Yeah, or they joined in the same issue or something maybe.
Because he's sort of Levitt's sort of, or maybe Giffen, maybe both of them. They kind of write the Durlians like they're like some extreme. Like an American caricature of like some Middle Eastern cultures or something like that, where they think they're like very severe and they cover themselves and they'll kill you for minor crimes like.
Oh yeah, like they'll cut your hands off for stealing or something like that. Yeah,
right. I'm not sure, but like everyone's afraid of him.
No, I mean, I don't know where that kind of stuff comes from, or whether it had to have been Levitz or Giffen, either in Legion or in like Omega Man. I think there were some Durlans in Omega Man too,
right?
And that might have been that plot was driven by Giffen. Giffen and Slifer, I guess, was doing that for a few issues. Giffen only did 6 issues of Omega Man, but yeah, that could be like that. Yeah, that weird foreign stereotype. Yeah,
right. And that wasn't around until Levitz and Giffen came along.
Yeah, that was not a Silver Age thing.
Right.
He was just a nice kid in the Silver Age.
Right. Though the other Durlians we saw were bad guys, but they were more standard space bad guys. They were Superman would fight them. They were called like the Chameleon Men. They might have even been like the Chameleon Men from Venus or something like that. They hadn't come up with, in those earlier ones, all the guys are from planets in the solar system.
Right.
It seems so far off. The Martian Manhunter.
But like this ends with this very dramatic. He's like, "Get me Marla on the phone," and it's
right.
Like it's kind of like the last scene of a weekly cop show or something,
right?
And the fact that when he actually does get Marla is not doing anything. Marla's just some employee of his, and like Marla doesn't have anything to do except for like he's like, "Get me Marla to cover for me at work because I'm leaving," is kind of what he wants. I just thought it was kind of funny how dramatic they make this.
Right.
Even though
this big reveal, she knows who he is,
and also these they eventually call them probes. They're androids. Right. I don't think they call them that in this issue. I think there's a text page in one of the subsequent issues where they lay out what these people are. Again
with the facelessness. I mean,
yeah,
no eyes in this case.
They kind of confuse me because they're not human, but they seem like they must be organic somehow. Like they're somewhat made of maybe living stuff. Like they show one getting killed and he bleeds. Maybe that was in issue 51 we read last week.
Right.
So they're organic.
They definitely seem like they're more than appliances. They seem to have.
Yeah, they have personalities.
Like, right.
But I think this is maybe the first appearance of one of them, and it's
Well, after they realized the Proteans were sentient, they had to find some other alien race to subjugate and treat as
yeah. But these guys
devices.
aren't aliens. I think they're actually manufactured artificial intelligences, I guess.
Well, that's a big leap from Computo too, even.
And these people act as their servants all the way through and all over the I don't know, the United Planets, or every world we go to has these guys.
Right.
And
Right.
people treat them as if they're not alive, and they get killed willy-nilly. But then they also have kind of high ranks. Like later on, there's one of these guys who's in the military with Shrinking Violet and stuff. I don't know. They're kind of weird. I bet they had some idea that maybe they were going to have a. I bet between Keith and Al and Tom and Mary, they were like, oh, the story possibility for down the road is to have humanity have to duke it out with these probe android characters. Like that's a possibility. I don't think they ever did it. Pretty sure they never did anything like that, but
no,
could have been an interesting idea.
It also seems, I don't know, like maybe Giffen kind of, he has this, I don't know if he just forgets what he's doing and repeats himself sometimes, but there's certain things he goes back to, like there's like the eye stock character that I think he draws in lots of different contexts, and the guy has no eyes and he just has like a
oh yeah, that guy.
And the biggest one, and I guess I should credit the colorist for mercifully giving him a blue robe this time, but he keeps going back to the purple robes. He has all these characters, like some of the major characters, all hidden in purple robes, like the Time Trapper and the Durlians. And there's another one. I can't remember. Maybe it was that guy at the end of volume 2.
Oh, Omen or Prophet or whoever.
Right. Lots of purple robed characters.
You're right. Like it almost seems like he probably expected this to be a purple robe.
Right.
Since that's what the Durlans always wear.
We have Reap sending a message to Marla. And Marla is R.J. Brand's former right-hand man, and he's the adult liaison for the Legion. We first saw him way back in the first appearance of Ultra Boy. And he seemed to be kind of an instructor type with him, who was wearing an almost identical costume with a slightly different logo on his chest. So he's been in the book for quite a long time. Reap is very vague here. Like he says, I'm going to do that thing we talked about. And so he's obviously talked to Marla about this before, and Marla seems to think he's nuts for trying this. Like maybe he's going on a suicide mission doing it. And of course he puts him in charge here, but you kind of get the sense that he's kind of been running the place the whole time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe Reap has been doing the books or something, but it seems like Marla's been doing most of the actual work.
Yeah, like Marla's the boss. And Chameleon Boy is like, he goes on TV and talks about stuff or whatever, right? He talks about all the stuff we are doing in our company.
Yeah, I think he's kind of, I give him a little more credit than that. I think he might be the accountant. Like he's getting all the books in order and stuff. Like Marla probably doesn't know shit about that. But
yeah, but why would
Marla
he do that? He's got a robot who could do that.
Right. Marla knows more about, he's a more hands-on guy. They build planets, right? Or do they build stars? I can't remember which. I think they build planets. But yeah, Marla's probably doing most of that. He looks more like he's doing the actual work.
Yeah, he's looking real old in this panel here.
Right.
And I'm kind of surprised they didn't put the little Ultra Boy insignia on him somewhere.
Right.
Since that was always his trademark. Like he just looked like an old version of Ultra Boy with the little W looking green thing on him.
Right.
They didn't give him that.
I don't know. I think this fits his character a little better, at least in this capacity. I mean, he always looked kind of silly. Like, I mean, it's kind of funny, but like in the tight costume. But he was always drawn as an older, gray-haired guy, wearing the tight clothes, and I think he might have even had a little bit of a belly, if I remember right.
Yeah, I mean, whenever Kurt Swan drew adults, you could tell there's a difference
Mhm.
between an adult, like a
Mhm.
regular non-superhero adult,
Right.
and like a superhero.
Right.
You could tell the difference.
I think they probably used him more maybe after Hour, but for as important a role as he had, obviously they kind of gave that to him retroactively. I think because even though he showed up in the Silver Age, we never see him in the Silver Age. But that's when you would think he would almost always be there because they're like 15, 14 years old, running around, like getting shot at. You would think the grown up would be involved a little more.
Yeah, it's like they thought of him for whatever part he needed to play in the Ultra Boy origin or
Right.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of somebody remembered him occasionally, like we just read, or we were just talking about Action Comics 392, where
Right.
he shows up and he inaugurates Mon-El as the next leader or something.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, in this, I think this may be the first time that they're like, oh yeah, this is a real person and he has a job and he works for RJ Brand.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Before that, I don't know, he was just this middle-aged or whatever, over-the-hill dude wearing tights that looks like Ultra Boys.
Well, he definitely had some sort of supervisory role over Ultra Boy in that first appearance. I remember assuming he was like from Ultra Boy's planet, but
oh, you know where he also showed up was in that awful Secrets of the Legion thing. Like he was
right, and I think that's when they started to fold him back in.
Yeah,
maybe
it could be.
But it's one of those things where, well, since it's a continuous narrative from like 1955 or whenever it started, until the mid 90s. They're slowly dialing up the realism as they go, but keeping it supposedly in the same story. So then they get to a point where things are getting serious enough that it starts to really stand out that these young teenagers had no adult supervision.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost seems like a retcon. We just never saw him around, but he was there kind of keeping tabs on them. Except for, of course, Rock, who was an adult at 14.
Right. He's been an adult the whole time.
Right.
Maybe he was a supervisor. Like any time that like a Karate Kid who's 15 has some problem, he goes to the adult in the room, 14-year-old Cosmic Boy.
Right. Oh, I should mention maybe that this is all happening. I actually figured out what year it was happening and everything. This is this issue is in 2994. The Legion got together first in 2973. So this is 22 years after their first appearance.
So Rock is now 36?
Yes.
Damn.
36. He was born in, I have that written down somewhere around here too, 2958.
What's the day and month?
I should have written that down. I didn't, but it was like February 6th, I think.
Well, his birthday's this week, dude. Happy birthday, Cosmic Boy.
Happy birthday, Cosmic Boy. You know what would be interesting? I should look. You know how there's a Legion fan on Twitter who always posts those old
I was going to mention
calendar
that person,
dates.
Yeah.
I wonder if Tom and Mary like lined it up with that.
Oh, I'm sure they used those. Like, I think there was only a handful of people, or a handful of Legionnaires who got their birthday on that. But
right,
yeah, I bet they used those
almost all.
Sure.
Almost all of the like the Silver Age batch of Legionnaires, they're all like around his age, maybe a couple years younger, or in a couple cases, a couple years older. Like Phantom Girl and Triplicate Girl, I think, are older than him, and Colossal Boy might be the oldest one by like 2 years. But then by the time you get around to Invisible Kid 2, he's more than 10 years younger than Rock.
Oh, really? I guess that makes sense. Like if Rock is 28 and Invisible Kid is 18, that kind of works out.
Right.
I wanted to point out this drawing of Marla down here.
Yeah.
Like this is a kind of a classic kind of Giffen profile.
Uh-huh.
But to me, it really looks like a Frank Robbins drawing. I don't know how familiar you are with Frank Robbins, but he'll do this stuff with like the big, deep black brush strokes, which are,
Mhm.
you know, provided by his inker and not him, but
Mhm.
like he must use the side of his pencil to get that stuff.
Mhm.
But, you know, like he does these, I don't know. I don't know if that's a real influence on him, but it really looks that way. And I was looking at something of his, it was maybe,
As opposed to Al Gordon, right? Like, you don't think Al Gordon's imposing that because it happens enough?
no, I think it's got to be a thing that Giffen does, that it's just the way he's drawing. Like he's pulling his influences from different places, different only comics inspiration, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a guy who doesn't know shit about shit except comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he's ever, or if he's into like the Milt Caniff style or that kind of stuff, or if if it's like a Toth thing that is sort of like he combines his Toth thing with his Wally Wood thing and on, and it just winds up, you know, at the end looking like a Frank Robbins drawing or something.
Mm-hmm.
But there's really something there, and I always think about it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this looks like a Frank Robbins drawing. But then, I don't know. There was this long thread I saw on Twitter where they were talking about the Global Guardians, and they're
Oh, yeah.
posting up these pictures or these pages from
Is
Justice
that
League.
Joe Staten?
No, they were Giffen drawn pages from Justice League International.
Oh, right. I was thinking of didn't they have their own series earlier on?
They were in like Super Friends, which is more like Ramona Fradon, I guess, and it might have been Joe Staten did some of them. But the Giffen stuff, like it's the little bit earlier than Legion number 1
Mm-hmm.
by not very long, a couple of years maybe.
Right.
But you can see the Toth influence in those, or I can anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be the inker. I'm not sure who was inking. It could have been Gordon. It could have been Joe Rubinstein. I don't remember who was inking the JLI stuff when Giffen drew those backup stories. But it looks like Toth. But then it also looks like he does these kind of 3/4 or almost profile drawings of people, and they have these kind of angular features, and they have a big lip, and they have deep shadows, and it just looks like the Caniff style, or even closer to Frank Robbins, which is like this much more, I don't know how you describe it. Is it impressionistic version of the Caniff style? It's kind of like he's using big gestures. He's drawing them real fast. I think if a person likes this era of Keith Giffen, they should check out, like, I don't know, like a 60s Frank Robbins comic, or even the fucking 70s Marvel Frank Robbins comic books. There's something there.
Like maybe he did like the Invaders or something in the 70s.
Oh yeah, he did the Shadow at DC. He did the Invaders. He did Flyman, Human Fly,
right?
Man from Atlantis, and some Batman. Some great Detective Comics issues of Batman.
Yeah, I always get the feeling like Giffen, like what we do know about him is he pumped out a lot of work and constantly, and it almost seems like, I don't know if he puts a lot of thought into it, like he's deliberately doing an homage to Robbins there, but he probably has books open all over the place. He's looking for ideas, and things get stuck in his head. Maybe he's sort of swiping stuff here and there because he's just churning stuff out constantly, and he's very like a craftsman or a utilitarian. It's not necessarily art to him. I don't know. At least when he's pumping stuff out.
It's kind of weird because he's so workmanlike and so busy, but he also seems restless. And I think even Paul said he was restless in the this is the letters page for Legion 50, when somebody was like, "Oh, I hear Keith is coming back," and Paul says, "Oh, it's not the Keith from 1983, and it's not the Keith from 1984. It's a different Keith. He's restless." And I see that, but also like I don't know how he has the time to not only keep. Well, see, I don't know if he's actually trying to improve his craft, or it's the same level of storytelling craft with a different kind of veneer of art style on it or what. But yeah, he does keep changing in ways that other superhero dudes don't ever change.
Yeah, it's weird because it's almost like how a beginning cartoonist really obviously wears their influences on their sleeves, like maybe because you're not quite as sure of yourself, so you're like, how did that guy draw the guy holding a fork or something like that, and you refer back to stuff. But he's done it long enough that that should all be like really internalized, but it has that feel like maybe he's looking at other stuff too much, and it's imprinted in him, at least like whatever he's reading at that time shows up in his work a little bit.
Yeah, but see, I have a hard
whatever
time.
Go ahead.
I have a hard time believing that he actually reads anything else or has time to or wants to read other comics, you know?
Right.
And, I don't also at this time in 1989, it's not like it is now where you can be like, oh, I'm kind of curious about a Frank Robbins comic. And you can go buy a book off of Amazon and have it here tomorrow. Right. It's like, no. When I started reading comics and heard about Frank Robbins and got curious about it, you couldn't buy that shit. You couldn't find it anywhere, you know?
I guess I picture him like just having huge stacks of comics, not necessarily to read, but it's like a morgue. Like, how do you draw that kind of thing? Oh, there's a building like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's a weird kind of idiot savant of just, I don't know, it's like drawing styles. Like it.
Right. It seems like he would be to the point where whatever sort of natural Keith Giffen style there would be, he would have it by then.
Right.
Certainly when he's drawing really fast.
Yeah.
And doing all that work. But maybe it's sort of the other way around, I wonder, where like he is going so fast that he has to look at other stuff.
Yeah,
to cut corners. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking that they're like the way he does it is, I don't know, it's different than the way a lot of other people do it. Like this is a guy who's, I think his first comic started coming out in like 1974 or 5 or something. And here we're in 1989. So 15 years ago, he could draw really well. And now today of 1989, when Legion #1 came out, he's got the chops to do whatever he wants. And it seems like he is bored and is trying to like, maybe I'll draw it like Toth did. Maybe I'll draw it. And he even said like, oh, I was really infatuated with the 9-panel Watchmen thing. Maybe I'll draw it like...
Right.
But he's not trying to draw like Dave Gibbons. He's trying to do stories in 9 boxes on a page. And so he tries that.
Right.
On and on. I mean, and he had done the 9-panel stuff way before that. Before
I feel like there is... Yeah, that's the first thing I was going to mention. I know he said that, but I think the first comics I saw by him were already in that 9-panel grid.
He did it pretty frequently way back. Yeah, before Watchmen.
Right. Like an 86-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, anyway.
Or 81-ish, yeah.
He was doing 9 panels that early?
I just remember that Creeper ad. Do you remember that? For like this, he was like, I'm doing a 12-issue Creeper comic that never came out. And there was like a promo for it that was 12 or 9 panels.
Was it, well, no, 81, that would be before he was even on Legion, right?
Well, it was maybe about the time. He was in Legion, maybe a year into it or something. So maybe 83 or 4, I guess. But I'd seen it before. Like I feel like he got it from Ditko, who used to do that all the time. And I assume that's where Alan Moore got it, because where else would he have gotten that from?
Definitely. I mean, well, even depends. That stuff is definitely influenced by Ditko, but I'm sure Ditko, a lot of the Golden Age comics were laid out like that, because early on, especially before Kirby started, doing crazy inventive layouts, they would structure it just like newspaper strips stacked up.
I mean, I don't remember in the really old stuff I've seen, I don't remember it ever being this fixed of a grid where all the panels are exactly the same size.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess probably not.
But it
like
is kind of
you're
an
saying.
old.
It's a little sloppier, but
Yeah.
they were usually, like, if you look at like early Supermans, a lot of them were like 4 tiers, very square panels. Maybe occasionally there'll be a circular panel squeezed in there, but
Right.
because the very first comic books, which weren't original material, were just stacked up dailies or in Sundays. And then when they wanted to make original material, they first made it look like the reprints.
Stay tuned.